You finally found your morning answer with Brian Whitman, Ben Shapiro, and Alicia Krause.
Thanks for joining us on The Morning Answer here on a Friday with Brian, Ben, and Alicia. It is your Morning Answer in advance of the Memorial Day weekend. Military Appreciation Day all happening tomorrow in San Pedro at the beautiful Battleship, Iowa. We'll talk about that in a moment. Big deal this week, certainly at the local news coverage, are all the Memorial Day weekend DUI checkpoints that are planned. The police department and sheriff's deputies out in full force targeting drunken and drug drivers during this weekend's Memorial Day festivities. The checkpoints scattered across the Southland during the 3-day holiday weekend. Interesting to note, L.A. County Sheriff's Department plans to have checkpoints in West Hollywood and Paramount, along with what they describe as an amplified presence in Lancaster, while the CHP is deploying all available officers, that's their statement, toward patrolling freeways and roads county-wide. Myles Berman is here on The Morning Answer, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney. Always great to see you, Myles.
Great to see you, too, and the whole team here. You guys do a great show, all three of you.
Ben, now Ben's got that Harvard sweatshirt on because you're an attorney. I mean, that's no secret. He doesn't put that sweatshirt on for everybody. But Ben,
I'm flattered.
and you were a student today. That's really spiffy. You
Well,
really
I didn't
didn't
go
have
to
to do
Harvard.
that for us. Where did you go to law school?
I went to law school in Chicago Kent College of Law.
Nice.
Myles always has a suit on. Myles always looks like, Myles has got to be ready for clients.
Gotta be ready at all times.
You got to be ready to go, Ben. You know what it's like.
To be fair, he has to look like that so that you can look like you do. Because when they're
the contrast.
you look like one of his clients, maybe.
Yeah, one's the client, one's the attorney.
One's the
you
lawyer,
figure out
yeah.
who's who.
That's right.
Okay, so Myles,
Actually, so do you, Ben, and Alicia, you too. It could be anybody.
It really
Anybody.
can. Isn't that true?
Yeah, it is. It's DUI affects anybody and everybody. And it's not just alcohol, it's drugs, too.
So let me ask a question, because I know this is going to be first and foremost on a lot of listeners' minds. How many innocent people get caught up in DUI cases? Because normally when people hear about DUI attorneys, the first thing they're going to think is, okay, they're getting people who are drunk drivers off. That's a bad thing. How many people who are innocent, who really aren't drunk, are getting caught up in these sorts of sweeps?
Well, actually, everybody who's arrested is innocent.
Okay, there's
Score
there's
one
the
for
legal,
Myles.
There's the
you
legal,
and I swore to uphold the same Constitution when we became
yeah, but I'm not on a
attorneys,
jury
right?
right now. So let's be real.
Okay.
How many people who are factually not drunk are caught up in these sorts of sweeps?
Well, you have to understand that breath testing, I don't believe is accurate.
Okay.
And so I don't have confidence in breath test results. So from my point of view and our point of view, everybody, first of all, is innocent unless a judge or a jury says otherwise. So it's hard to answer your question because I don't know everybody's situation.
So why don't
I know
let's
from our
start
clients.
let's start with the first question then. Why do you think that the breath tests don't work? Because most people obviously do think they work.
Well, I'll give you a practical answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not unusual for somebody to get a breath test result which is a .02 apart. So like it's a .08 and a .10. That will fit the government's requirements, but a person doesn't go from a .08 to a .10 in a matter of minutes. That's number one. Number two, breath test machines are calibrated to assume everybody is the same. There's a ratio between alcohol in your breath and your blood, and none of us fit the statutory ratio that California has passed. So breath testing assumes we're all the same.
You mean, Myles, in terms of size and everything like that?
Height, weight.
Capacity to consume alcohol?
The ability to, the relationship between alcohol in the breath and alcohol in the blood.
I see.
That absorbing, we're all fully absorbed. I mean, there's a lot of science that you have to know. But height and weight really is as significant on the variations. It's just that each of us are unique, and we have different ratios.
So doing what you do, Myles Berman is with us. We're talking about these DUI checkpoints over the weekend. Myles is the Top Gun DUI defense attorney. By the way, I saw the 30th anniversary of the Top Gun movie. You predate that, I know, but it's interesting. Time goes by. So then, as a defense attorney who defends people who are accused of drunk driving or drug driving, whatever it is that the first thing you go after? Is the science of it that you try to go in there and throw out any breathalyzer results, or is that the idea?
Well, the first witness that the state always puts up is a police officer. So our first approach is to, obviously, in cross-examining the police officer. We know that police officers are trained to only write down bad things. But oftentimes, and most of the time, there's good things that somebody does in the course of the investigation, like the field sobriety test, or their driving isn't bad. For example, just because you run a stop sign doesn't mean you're under the influence of alcohol. That's just a common occurrence for people who are sober. But the field sobriety tests, the way they're performed, they're very difficult. They're very stressful for people to do that, especially people who haven't done it before. Most people who are arrested for DUI are first-time offenders. Most of our clients are first-time offenders. So the attack is on the police through cross-examination, and of course, with a breath test for alcohol, then there's science that's involved that actually rebuts the state's opinion that the person was at a certain level at the time of driving.
So what do you think about those? I think it was like a Shark Tank idea, and I'm obsessed with that show, of a breathalyzer test that people could carry in their purse or in their back pocket. So when they go out to a bachelor party or something, they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't drive home. They do a little test. Do you advise people to do something like that, or just to take Uber?
Well, those portable breath test machines that people can buy for $100 or something like that, I really don't know how accurate they are. I can tell you that the machines that the state uses and the police use aren't accurate either. They really don't measure the person's alcohol in their blood. So I can't say that somebody should use a test themselves and assume that that's accurate and then go ahead and drive.
We'll take some phone calls for Myles Berman, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney, 855-785-8255. That's our number if you have a question for Myles. I know the police officers love to talk to Myles at 855-785-8255. We were having an interesting conversation a few moments ago, Myles. Ben and Alicia and I were talking about the constitutionality of these DUI checkpoints. And we spoke a moment ago how West Hollywood, Paramount, this weekend, Memorial Day, an amplified presence in Lancaster has been identified as a place where there need to be more checkpoints. And we'll get Ben in here after we talk to you for a second, just on the constitutionality of a cop pulling you over and investigating what's happening in your car or what's going on with you just because you're on Ventura Boulevard on Memorial Day weekend, for an example. Is that constitutional?
The answer is yes. The Supreme Court has held, both in California and the United States Supreme Court has held, that checkpoints are in fact constitutional. Now, I know a lot of the listening audience doesn't agree with all of the laws that have been passed and decisions that have been upheld, but and there's a conflict because people want safe roads, but at the same time, people don't want to be pulled over without probable cause, which is what the Constitution calls for.
Interesting. Ben, at Harvard, I'm sure you guys talked about the constitutionality of these. To me, I don't know if it's a liberal bias, but to me, it just seems crazy when a cop pulls you over for really no reason other than you're just in this intersection.
Well, so basically, the Supreme Court has ruled that these sobriety checkpoints are okay. The reason they do this is, I think, a little bit on weak footing. Basically, the idea is that they balance the notion that you have a privilege but not a right to drive with the good that it does to have sobriety checkpoints. Again, I don't understand how any of that overcomes the Fourth Amendment requirement that there actually be reasonable search and seizure, that you have reasonable suspicion that something is going on in order to violate your right to be free of search and seizure. The Supreme Court does these sorts of practical decisions all the time, but that doesn't mean that they're constitutionally correct. So I have a tendency to believe what Myles believes. I tend to think that the checkpoints, I think TSA is the same way, by the way. I think that the checkpoints and the TSA, solid argument that these things are not constitutional under the Fourth Amendment.
Our number is 855-785-8255 here on a Friday morning, getting into the Memorial Day weekend. Myles Berman is with us, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney. Ron in Canoga Park, welcome to the Morning Answer. Hi, Ron.
Good morning, group. How are you all? Have a very happy Memorial Day weekend.
Happy Memorial Day to you, Ron.
Thank you. Thank you. Myles, have you ever attended an AA meeting?
No, sir. Great question, though. You could have got me.
Why would it matter, Ron, if Myles has ever been to an AA meeting?
Well, I know in college, one of my professors required us to attend an AA meeting, and when I did, you get some insight into people who have had multiple convictions. So I was just wondering if he ever did any field research in the area of addiction or alcoholism.
Well, going to AA wouldn't be the only thing that can be done. So, I mean, we're constantly inundated with this particular issue and treatment for alcoholism. But that's a different issue with what we do in representing people for DUI. And I also like to point out we should also talk a little bit about drugs because there's a big push, especially for marijuana. You read it, but it's
there's more to it than that. Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as alcohol addiction, I mean, obviously we're familiar with it, and we're familiar with recovery programs and alcohol programs, but you don't have to go to AA to become aware of that.
Let's talk, before we include another caller, to the drug driver. So people are on prescriptions for all sorts of anti-anxiety medications, antidepressive medications, sleep medications. People might get loopy for a couple of different reasons, plenty of which are legal.
It's that's correct, and there's as a matter of fact, a lot of the population is on prescription drugs, and this has been going on for quite some time. But I also like to add marijuana because this is a big thing. The police are on a big push now to look for people who are driving not just under the influence of alcohol, not just under the influence of prescription drugs, but also for marijuana, especially with the legalization, what's coming down all across the country and in California. The roads actually are a little more filled with people who are smoking dope, and they think that because they have a medical marijuana card that somehow protects them, which it doesn't.
Myles Berman is with us. Alicia, what is it here? We'll get to one more call here.
Oh, just that
was a
like
good
people
one.
think that they have like I've got a weed license, so I can drive high. What the heck?
Well, that's they feel like because they have a prescription for it, just like people have a prescription drug, Xanax or Percocet,
Whatever they're doing.
Yeah, that this is their natural.
Oh, people.
All right,
system.
let's go to Matt in Los Angeles here on the Morning Answer. Myles Berman, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney, is here. Hi, Matt.
Morning.
Hi, Matt. Are you a cop?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going back from court right now.
All right, you're on with Myles. Thanks for the call. Go right ahead.
So I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the accuracy of blood tests for blood alcohol?
There's problems with blood testing. Breath testing is less accurate than blood, but also just because there's a person is a .08 or greater after the arrest doesn't mean that they're a .08 or greater at the time of the arrest or that they were impaired. But without getting too far into the weeds, blood testing has certain requirements that it needs to meet, both with what's in the vial and the procedure as well.
Okay. Because I've made about 300 plus or minus DUI arrests in my career. And I've seen actually a pretty strong correlation between what I've seen in my field sobriety test, what the breath has shown, but the breath test has shown me, and what the blood has shown me. So, I mean, all three can't be wildly inaccurate if they're all coming in more or less in the same range.
Officer, thank you for that phone call. Myles, you want to respond real quick?
Yeah, it's very rare when there's a breath and a blood test, so I'm not sure what he's talking about as far as with the 300 arrests that he's made. It's very rare when that happens.
Interesting. Okay, Myles Berman, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney. Where can people go? They can go online. Obviously, all this checkpoint information is public record. I mean, the law enforcement puts out online where all these checkpoints are. It's not a secret.
Yes, actually, I do post it on Facebook and Twitter in the afternoons on Friday for checkpoints for over the weekend. The website, you can go to topgundui.com and find that.
And it's all on there, topgundui.com.
Yeah, correct.
Topgundui.com. Myles Berman, it's always great to see you, my friend. It's 888-4-TOP-GUN. Myles Berman, on Memorial Day weekend, we got on the Morning Answer Facebook page a story about amped up law enforcement, police, LAPD, and sheriff's deputies out in what they call full force this weekend, targeting drivers under the influence. We appreciate you joining us, tell you all about Military Appreciation Day. Tomorrow's a great day in San Pedro at the Battleship, Iowa. I want you to come out for that. It's 8:51.